Yeah, that looks really weird, but look, there we go.
And welcome to Blender Breakdown, a show where we break down blends. So let's jump right into this one.
So in this scene, we have this forest walking scene. It has grease pencil, and it also has some live action footage incorporated in it. And let's just tackle the live action footage first. So how do we get this in here? So as you can see up here, we have this node editor. I have the file loaded. You can change that anytime, but I have a mix shader here going to the material output. And what is happening here is if I unhook the emissions, you can see it's not projecting the character any, so that's why we had the emissions. But if we don't have the transparency, then you just get this black background. The way I imported it was as a MOV, and MOVs don't have transparency, at least not to my knowledge. So we got around that by just adding a transparent shader and the emission shader, and we just mix these two together, and boom. So this is what it looks like when none of it's there. There's actually nothing at all. So if you try to do a similar thing, if you got a black background, you got live action footage, this is a pretty basic setup for it. Blender does actually let you import PNG sequences, but when I rendered this out of After Effects, I didn't really know that. So I know that now, and it actually makes this process a lot easier, because then I just have to the background would already be, it'd be transparent, it wouldn't be there because it would be a PNG sequence, and they support transparency. So all I would have to do for that one is just take it straight to the material output and it would work. But this is one way to get it to work if you did something like I did here. So as you can see, it's animated. The way the animation works, it's cyclic. There's frames, it starts it. So he's basically just running in place, and when it hits frame 93, the animation just resets because it's cyclic. And so down here at the end, you can see he actually falls. Now, the way I worked this is I had this animation start as it came on the screen. So these actually swap out. You can see here on the keyframes that the animation actually swaps out in between these two. So it's a whole different frame. So another thing I should mention is that this is actually a plane. I didn't just grab video and throw it in here. I made a plane and projected that. So if we can throw that off here, and you can see that's actually just a plane. If I take all of this stuff off, it is just a plane that I put here and projected that video on here. So that's how you do it. So if you're curious to how to get your live action in in Blender, you don't just toss it in here and expect it to work. You have to cast it onto something. I could cast it onto anything. So like what's this material called? It's just a material P6. Heck, I could probably grab this and okay, I can't put it on grease pencil, but I can make like a cube over here, and I could just throw that on it, like boom. Yeah, that looks really weird, but look, there we go. That looks incredibly weird. Yes, very weird. But there you go. That's how you do that. That's how you get your live action in there. And then we have the grease pencil here. It's nothing really too special going on with it. I just very poorly drew some trees, some ground, and everything else. I'll show you why this is going on right here. It's just because it's on the same layer. I have a foreground and a background layer for my grease pencil, and that one's just a little. And so the background's not doing anything too special. The background's mainly just that, and then the foreground is actually both of these trees are on the foreground because that's just the way I went about doing it. I should have put the other tree on the line art and not the few layer that I misspelled there. The ground is actually using lights. It's accepting lights. They don't cast shadows, which is something I learned. Who knows now? This is Blender 2.91. Who knows what might happen in the future? And you might be. There's probably ways to get to cast lights from what I've seen, but it's a pretty simple thing. Just turn on cast lights, and everything accepts lights.
And that's it for the Blender Breakdown. Not really much to this scene, but maybe next week we'll cover another scene. And another thing with these Blender Breakdowns, maybe it's not just Blender. Maybe sometimes it's a Unreal project breakdown. Who knows? But if you like what you saw, if you want to see more, maybe you want it to be more in depth, maybe you want to know a little bit more about the grease pencil or live action in Blender, well, just let me know down in the comments. But that's all for me. I'm Adrian, and we'll holler at y'all later. And welcome to Blender Blake. And welcome to Blender Bake. off.